I did something one morning, something I had been thinking about for a long time, but never believed I would actually do. I quit my job, no plan, no backup, no clear idea of what would happen next. Just a decision, a simple decision that changed everything. Have you ever felt tired of your job, but stayed anyway? Have you ever told yourself, just one more year, just a little longer, things will get better, but deep inside, you already knew the truth? That was me. For years. From the outside, my life looked stable. I had a steady job, a monthly salary, a routine that made sense. Every morning, I woke up at the same time, got ready, went to work, did what I was supposed to do, came home, rested, and repeated the same day, again and again and again. Nothing was wrong. That was the problem. Nothing was wrong, but nothing felt right. There was no excitement, no curiosity, no sense of direction, just movement, like walking on a road without knowing where it leads. At first, I ignored the feeling. I told myself, this is normal. Everyone feels this way. Work is not supposed to be exciting. And maybe that is true. Maybe not every job needs to be meaningful, but there is a difference between doing something you don't love and doing something that slowly drains you. And my job was draining me. Not quickly, not dramatically, but slowly, quietly, day by day. I didn't notice it at first, but over time, I became more tired, not physically, mentally, emotionally. Small things started to feel heavy. Simple tasks felt difficult. Even weekends didn't feel relaxing anymore. Because Sunday always came, and with it, the thought of Monday. I remember one Sunday night very clearly. I was sitting alone, looking at nothing, just thinking. And a question appeared in my mind. A simple question, but a dangerous one. Is this my life now? I didn't answer immediately because I was afraid of the answer, so I pushed it away, like always. But the question didn't disappear. It came back the next week, and the week after that, stronger each time. Is this my life now? And slowly, I started to see things differently, not the job itself, but how I felt about it. I noticed how often I checked the time, how often I waited for the day to end, how often I felt relieved just because work was over. That is not a good sign. Relief should not be the main feeling of your day. But I stayed. Because staying felt safe. Because leaving felt dangerous. I had responsibilities, bills, rent, daily expenses, and more than that, I had fear. Fear of uncertainty, fear of failure, fear of making the wrong decision. So I stayed, even when I knew something needed to change. Until one morning, something inside me shifted. There was no big event, no argument, no crisis, just a quiet realization. I was getting ready for work. Same routine, same movements, same thoughts. And suddenly, everything felt very clear. I didn't want to do this anymore. Not tomorrow, not next year, not someday, now. The feeling was calm, not emotional, not dramatic, just certain. And before I could overthink it, before fear could stop me, I made the decision. I went to work, sat at my desk, opened my computer, and wrote a short message. A simple message. I would like to resign. I read it once, twice. My heart was beating faster. My hands felt slightly cold. This was real. There was no plan, no next step, just this moment. And then I pressed send. That was it. No turning back. No more. Maybe. No more waiting. I sat there in silence, looking at the screen, waiting for a response. And for the first time in a long time, I felt something different. Not fear, not stress, but something unexpected: freedom. A small, quiet sense of freedom, mixed with uncertainty, mixed with doubt, but still there. I didn't know what would happen next. I didn't know if I made the right decision, but I knew one thing: something had changed. And once something changes inside you, you cannot go back to how you were before. That was the beginning. Not the solution, not the answer, just the beginning of a new problem, a bigger one, a more real one. Because quitting is easy, living with that decision is something else. In the next part, I will tell you what happened after that message, what I felt, what I faced, and what reality looks like when you remove the only thing that made your life feel safe. At first, nothing felt real. After I sent that message, after I officially quit my job, I expected something dramatic to happen. Maybe panic, maybe regret, maybe a strong feeling of fear. But instead, there was silence, a strange kind of silence. The day continued like normal. People were working, emails were coming, meetings were happening, and I was still there, sitting at my desk. But something had changed. I was no longer part of it. Not really. It felt like I was watching my own life. From the outside. When my manager replied, it was calm, professional, simple. "Let's talk." We had a short conversation. No drama. No questions about why. Just process, timeline, final day. And just like that, it became official. I was leaving. For the rest of that week, I moved differently. I spoke less. I observed more. Every small thing felt more meaningful. The sound of the office, the routine conversations, the way people complained about work, the way I used to complain. It was strange, because just a few days ago, this was my entire world. And now, I was stepping out of it, slowly, day by day, until my last day arrived. I packed my things, not much. Just a few personal items: a notebook, a cup, some small objects that once made the space feel mine. People said goodbye, some smiled, some were surprised, some said, "You're brave." But I didn't feel brave. I felt uncertain, very uncertain. When I walked out of the building, there was no celebration, no big moment, just a normal day. Cars moving, people walking, life continuing. But inside me, everything felt different. I was free, but also completely exposed. The next morning, I woke up, and something felt strange. There was no alarm, no rush, no reason to get up quickly. I stayed in bed longer than usual, looking at the ceiling, thinking, this is it. This is the new life. At first, it felt good. Very good. No pressure, no schedule, no responsibilities. And I told myself, I made the right decision. I needed this. I deserve a break. And for a few days, I enjoyed it. Slow mornings, long walks, quiet time. But then, something started to change, slowly, almost unnoticeable. A new feeling appeared. Not freedom, not excitement, but something heavier: uncertainty. I started to think more. Too much. What now? What should I do next? How long can I stay like this? And then, the most uncomfortable thought of all: what if this was a mistake? That question stayed with me. All day. Every day. At first, I tried to ignore it. I distracted myself, watched videos, spent time online, did small things to avoid thinking, but avoidance doesn't solve anything. It only delays the truth. And the truth was simple. I had no plan, no direction, no structure. Just time, and too much time, can become dangerous, because without structure, you start to lose clarity. Days become unclear, motivation disappears, And slowly, you begin to feel lost. I remember one afternoon, I was sitting at home, doing nothing, not resting, not working, just existing. And I realized something uncomfortable. This freedom was starting to feel like a problem. Not because freedom is bad, but because I didn't know how to use it. I had spent years following a structure. Now that structure was gone, and I didn't know how to replace it. Then reality became more real. Money, bills, expenses, they didn't stop, even if I stopped working. I opened my bank account one day and looked carefully. For the first time, not quickly, not casually, but seriously. And what I saw made everything clear. Time was not unlimited. Freedom was not free. Every day without income had a cost, a real cost. And suddenly, the pressure returned, not from a boss, not from a job, but from life itself. That is when doubt became stronger. What have I done? Why didn't I plan? Why didn't I wait? These thoughts were loud, constant, difficult to ignore. And this time, I couldn't escape them. Because this situation was created by my own decision. No one forced me, no one told me to quit. This was my choice. And now, I had to face the consequences. That is the part people don't talk about. Quitting feels powerful, but what comes after can feel very uncomfortable, very uncertain, very real. And I was just at the beginning. In the next part, things become even more difficult. But because this is where reality truly begins, where comfort disappears, and where I had to decide whether I would move forward or slowly fall apart. After a few weeks, the feeling changed again. This time, it was heavier, more real, and impossible to ignore. The freedom I once enjoyed was slowly disappearing. In its place, something else was growing. Pressure, not loud, not sudden, but constant, like a quiet weight that followed me everywhere. Every morning, I woke up with the same thought. What should I do today? And every day, the answer was unclear. At first, I tried to stay positive. I told myself, this is normal. I just need time. I will figure it out. But time passed. Days became weeks, and nothing became clear. Instead, things became more confusing. I tried to be productive. I made simple plans. Today I will learn something new. Today I will look for opportunities. Today I will start something. But most days, I didn't follow those plans, not because I was lazy, but because I felt lost. When you don't know what direction to go, even small steps feel difficult, and slowly, my confidence started to disappear. Before, when I had a job, even if I didn't love it, I knew my role. I knew what to do. I knew where I belonged. Now, I had nothing to hold on to, no structure, no identity, just uncertainty. And then, the financial pressure became stronger. I started tracking my money more carefully, every expense, every small payment, food, rent, electricity, internet. Things I once ignored now felt important, very important. I began to calculate. How long can I survive like this? 1 month? 2 months? 3? The answer was not comforting. And that is when fear became real. Not an idea, not a thought, but a feeling. A deep, uncomfortable feeling that stayed with me all day. I started sleeping less, waking up in the middle of the night, thinking, replaying my decision again and again. Why did I quit? Why didn't I wait? Why didn't I prepare? There were no answers, only silence and regret. Yes, regret. For the first time, I admitted it to myself. I regret this. That was a hard moment because before that, I was trying to stay strong, trying to believe everything would be okay. But now, I was not sure anymore. One afternoon, I received a message from an old colleague. He asked, "How is your new life?" I looked at the message for a long time. I didn't know how to answer. Should I say, "It's great"? That would be a lie. Should I say, "I'm struggling"? That felt uncomfortable. So I gave a simple answer. I'm still figuring things out. But the truth was deeper than that. I wasn't just figuring things out, I was struggling. Mentally, emotionally, financially. And the hardest part? No one could see it. From the outside, my life still looked fine. No job, but also no visible problem. That is the danger of this situation. People don't see your pressure. They don't feel your fear. So they assume everything is okay. But inside, it was not okay at all. I started to question myself, not just my decision, but my ability. Am I capable of building something new? Do I actually have any valuable skills? Or was I just comfortable before? These questions were painful because they touched something deeper: self-worth. When you lose structure, you don't just lose routine, you can lose confidence. And when confidence is gone, everything feels harder, even simple things. Sending a message, starting a task, making a decision, everything feels heavy. One day, I sat down and forced myself to be honest. No excuses, no distractions, just truth. I asked myself one clear question: if I continue like this, what will happen? And the answer was simple: nothing good. I would run out of money. I would lose more confidence. I would feel worse. That was the reality. And for the first time, I understood something important. I quitting my job was not the real problem. The real problem was what I did after that. Or more accurately, what I didn't do. I didn't create structure. I didn't take action. I didn't move forward. I just stayed in uncertainty. And uncertainty is not a place you can stay for long. It will slowly break you. That realization changed something. Not everything, but something. For the first time in weeks, I felt a small sense of clarity. Maybe the situation was not hopeless. Maybe I was not completely lost. Maybe I just needed to start, even if the start was small, very small. In the next part, I will tell you about that moment, the moment I stopped waiting, stopped overthinking, and finally decided to take the first real step forward. That moment was not dramatic. There was no sudden motivation. Or it's no powerful speech, no big idea, just a quiet decision, a simple one. I cannot continue like this. That was it. Not I will change my life. Not I will become successful. Just I need to do something. Because doing nothing was slowly destroying me. So I started small, very small. The next morning, I didn't try to change everything. I didn't make a big plan. I didn't set impossible goals. I did one simple thing. I created structure. I woke up at a fixed time, not because I had to, but because I chose to. That was new. Before, my schedule was controlled by my job. Now, it was my responsibility. And at first, it felt strange, even uncomfortable, because freedom without discipline becomes chaos. So I gave my day a simple shape: morning, wake up, make the bed, drink water, and sit quietly for a few minutes. No phone, no distractions, just awareness. Then I chose one task, not 5, not 10, just one. Something small, something possible, something I could finish. That was important because I needed to feel progress, even if it was small. The first task I chose was simple. I updated my resume. It took less than 2 hours, but when I finished, I felt something I had not felt in weeks: completion. That feeling mattered because it reminded me I could still move forward. I was not stuck. I was just not acting. The next day, I did another small task. I wrote down my skills, not what I wanted to have, but what I actually had. At first, the list felt short, too short. I felt disappointed. But I didn't stop. I kept thinking, slowly, carefully, and the list grew. Not impressive, but real. And real is better than perfect. Then I asked myself, how can I use these skills? Not how can I change my life, just what is the next step? That question changed everything. Because before, I was thinking too big, too far, too unclear. Now, I focused on the next step, only the next step, and that made things easier, more possible. I started sending messages, simple ones, to old contacts, to people I knew. Nothing complicated, just honest communication. I'm exploring new opportunities. I would like to learn more. I'm open to small projects. Some people didn't reply. Some gave short answers, but a very small number, responded with interest. That was enough because I didn't need everything to work. I just needed something to start. Then something else changed. My mindset. Before, I was focused on results. How fast can I earn money again? How quickly can I fix this? But that thinking created pressure, and pressure made me freeze. Now, I changed the focus from results to actions. What can I do today? That question was simpler and more powerful because I could answer it every day, even if the answer was small. I also accepted something difficult. This would take time, not days, not 1 week, maybe months. And that was okay because rushing was part of the problem before. Now, I needed patience, slow progress, real progress. There were still difficult days. Days when I felt tired, days when doubt returned, days when I wanted to give up. That didn't disappear, but something was different. I didn't stay in that feeling anymore. I moved, even a little, even slowly, because I understood something new. Action creates clarity, not thinking, not waiting, not hoping. Action. And slowly, very slowly, life started to feel different again. Not easy, not stable, but moving forward, one small step at a time. In the next part, I will share what happened after that, what these small actions created, how things began to change, and the lesson I learned from one of the most difficult decisions of my life. The changes did not happen overnight. There was no sudden success, no big breakthrough, no moment where everything became easy. Instead, there were small results, quiet ones, the kind you can easily ignore if you are not paying attention. A reply to a message, a short conversation, a small opportunity. Nothing impressive, but real, very real. One day, someone I contacted weeks before sent me a message. He said, I might have something for you. It was not a job, not a full-time position, just a small project, short-term, simple. The pay was not high. In fact, it was lower than what I used to earn. But this time, I did not hesitate. I said yes, immediately, because I understood something now. I was not starting from the top. I was starting again. And when you start again, you don't wait for perfect opportunities, you take real ones. That small project changed more than I expected, not because of the money, but because of what it gave me: structure, responsibility, a reason to wake up with purpose, and most importantly, confidence. When I finished that project, I felt different, stronger, not because everything was fixed, but because I proved something to myself. I can rebuild. That belief was more valuable than money. After that, things began to grow. Slowly, another small project, another connection, another step. Nothing fast, nothing easy, but steady. And for the first time in a long time, I felt in control again. Not of everything, but of my direction. And that was enough. Looking back now, I understand something clearly. Quitting my job without a plan was not brave. It was not smart. It was emotional and risky. But it also forced me to face myself, to see my habits, my fears, my weaknesses, things I was avoiding before. Because when life is stable, you don't always see the truth. You stay comfortable, even if something is wrong. But when everything is removed, when there is no structure, no security, no clear path, you are forced to see reality. And that can be painful, very painful, but also very valuable. If I could go back, would I do the same thing? Honestly, no. I would prepare. I would plan. I would think more carefully because struggle is not necessary to learn. But now that it happened, I don't regret the lesson because it changed how I see life, how I see work, how I see myself. I learned that freedom without direction becomes confusion. I learned that thinking without action creates fear. And I learned that small steps are not weak, they are powerful, very powerful. If you are listening right now and you feel lost, uncertain, or stuck, remember this: you don't need a perfect plan. You don't need a big idea. You don't need to fix everything today. You just need one step, one real action, something small, something possible, and then another step, slowly, calmly, consistently, because that is how things change, not in one moment, but over time, quietly. If this story made you think, if it helped you feel less alone, or gave you a small sense of clarity, then stay with this journey. Listen again, take your time, and keep learning. If you want more slow English stories like this to improve your listening and understand real life lessons, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and come back for the next story.